You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're going to talk about, is it too late to start publishing low-content books? And I think we've both got very similar ideas on this one again, Keith.
Yeah. Shocker, yeah. I know.
I know.
And we really haven't discussed this. I've talked about this in other episodes, but we kind of just come up with the topic right before we start recording and to kind of make it as real as possible. But I would say, to make this a super short episode, it would be, the answer is no, it's not too late. And but don't worry, we'll give you a little bit more insight than that. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason we're doing this episode is because a lot of people do ask us, is it too late now? Is Amazon KDP saturated? Is everybody making low content books on Amazon? And is it therefore too busy on Amazon? Is there too much competition? So all of those questions do come up, and I can understand why people are asking that. But I think that if you've run any business in the past, you know that there's always competition, and some businesses have more competition than others. But as far as anything that I have done in the past, I think when I look at it, I think that Amazon KDP is one of the least competitive businesses. I used to sell jewelry online, and you couldn't get any more competitive than that. And I still made sales. So to me, it's not scary. It's not something that I even think about. My husband and I always joke about it whenever we walk into one of our bookstores. We love going book shopping, and we go into Waterstones, which is one of the big bookshops here in the UK. And whenever we're there, it's just really bustling with people. Everyone's buying books. There's books everywhere. And we look at each other and we say, oh, yes, it's saturated.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, there are lots of books, but there are lots of buyers. And there are new books coming out every day, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say every week, but I think there are new books coming out daily. And
I agree.
There's a market for them.
Yeah, and the same thing, whether it's written books, no content books, low content books. I think another thing that really appeals to people as creators of low content, no content books are looking into getting into it is, not everybody's a writer. Not everybody has that mindset, and so there's a lot less investment time-wise, to creating something low content than writing a 75,000 word novel. And so it's definitely intriguing and enticing to a lot of people for that reason.
Yeah.
That said, that doesn't mean, and this is one of the biggest complaints I have, is these YouTube videos and things like that, where people make it sound so darn easy, and it's in 3 easy steps or 3 simple steps. These are trigger words that are used for sales. It's that simple. The bottom line is any business, if you could do any business in just 3 easy steps or 3 simple steps, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
And also, if it was really that easy, you probably would have already known about it. You wouldn't need to take so-and-so's course to learn the 3 easy steps.
Do you know, I just found something we disagree on.
All right. Let's do it. Let's get this going.
Well, I thought the same as you at first, when you said about the videos that say, learn it in 3 easy steps. It's not that easy. Of course it's not. But at the same time, I do think it's easier than some other forms of starting an online business.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you said earlier, I mean, if you have to write a book, that's so much more difficult than creating a low content book. And I think that is what people mean when they say it's very easy to start, because it's all relative, I guess. It's not easy to sell those books, but it's relatively easy to start. So I think in that sense, some of those YouTubers are right when they say it's very easy to start, because it is. It's really not that difficult to upload a low content book on Amazon KDP. But of course, what's difficult is making the sales and keeping that going.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, we didn't disagree a lot, but just slightly.
Yeah, just slightly, just slightly. Hey, I'll take it. No, I mean, I agree with that aspect of it, that they, that there's very little extra stuff that you have to add into it. Like, again, you don't have to spend a lot of time writing it or anything like that. But to make it sound, it's easy to get into. I guess that's the main thing. Yes, it's easy to get into, but most people, when they're trying to get into something as a business, there's this underlying expectation that they want to make sales, and so I guess it is all in the wording, but when they do, like, a lot of these, especially when they're commercials, when they're ads that you see, they're trying to sell you something. It's that simple. Which, I mean, I'm not against. I mean, that's part of their business model. That's fine. But just understand that it's easy to get into this niche. Where the time comes in is probably in your research, to research what type of books you're going to do, what niche you're going to be in. But that's really where at least most of my time comes into. And then, you want to put, some time and effort into the actual creation of it, to the point where you make sure that it's a good quality interior as well as the cover. That doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time, because, I mean, if you have templates, or if you have software that will generate, that type of interior for you, then you can do it still fairly quickly, in a matter of minutes sometimes. So again, it doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it's definitely going to be a lot quicker than, like I said before, writing. I mean, even writing a short read, is going to take you, a couple hours to do, compared to, you can, depending on what type of low content book you're doing, you can turn that around. Again, it could be in a matter of an hour, depending on what that type is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain low content books that you can make in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If you have the interior, if it's just a lined notebook, you can, and you see them on Amazon. It's just like a black cover with some text, and that's it. Call it a day. 10 minutes tops, I think. But are they going to sell? Are they going to create a full-time income for you? That's where it starts getting a little bit more difficult. But the answer to the question, is it too late? No, definitely not too late, because I think you can start something and you can start creating low content book, and that can then lead you to other things, like in my case as well. So now I'm experimenting with nonfiction books. So, there's always, and before that I did the children's books. So you can start with one thing, and then it can lead you to all sorts of different other things. So for me, it was never too late. I wish I'd started a long time ago now. Yeah. But I think even if I started today, I know that would be a good time to start, because there are so many possibilities when it comes to creating low content books that can then lead you to other things as well. You can still stay with low content books. And I know a lot of people who really love low content books. They love to create planners, and they love to create special types of notebooks. And that includes me, by the way. I love stationery. I love going into bookstores and looking at notebooks and what covers they have, and what have they got that makes them different to other notebooks. So I love all that. And I know there's plenty of people out there that enjoy that, and that use notebooks themselves, and planners and journals. So I think there's definitely a market, and it's definitely not too late. That's just my opinion, but I just can't see it being too late, because I don't feel that the market is too competitive yet. I mean, it's more competitive than it used to be. I agree. But that's the same with anything. But compared to other businesses, I still think that it's one of the easier ones, for want of a better word. Maybe and when I say easy, I don't say that lightly, because if anybody's watched my videos, I always say it's difficult and it's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work. But that's comparing it to other types of businesses, you know. So I definitely found running a language school a lot more difficult, and I found selling the jewelry online a lot more difficult. There was a lot more involved in that, and a lot of things that I didn't know that I know now, and you know, I wish I had known then. It might have made it a little bit better, but you're learning the business that you're in as you go along. And I still think, you know, even though there's a lot to learn here, it's doable. It's something that is at the reach of anybody, really. You know, whether you're successful in the long run, that's a different story. But it's something that everybody can do. Would you say that as well? That
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I could have my, you know, my mom could start doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen teenagers creating low content, no content books. Obviously that, you know, their parent or guardian has to create the, you know, the account, but they can create the interiors and the covers themselves. So yeah, absolutely. I think anybody can get into it. And I think that's one of the things that is the most in exciting about it, is that you have that very easy barrier of entry, you know.
Exactly.
You know, very little in your way. You don't need to spend a ton of money on software. You know, you can use, you know, free Canva to do your interiors, or just a Word document or Google Docs or whatever.
PowerPoint, even.
Yeah, PowerPoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my go-to. But
yeah,
I mean, like, so I mean, even Google Docs, which is completely free, like you don't have to have, you know, a Microsoft account or anything. And so, you know, there's basically no barrier of entry. And you know, you don't have to you know, create something that's completely, you know, super out of this world unique when you first get started, you know.
that's right.
And so I think that's one of the things that makes it so appealing to people. One thing that you were mentioning about you know, how hard it is in a lot of other different industries, is I think part of it is going to come down to is this something you think you'd enjoy doing?
Yeah.
Because, you know, in life, we've got so many things that we have to do that I always recommend to people when they say, you know, should I start no content, low content books, or should I start writing a children's book or whatever? Do you want to? You know, if it's not something, that you want to do, you just think maybe I should because, you know, it's a good avenue, then it's going to feel more like work. And chances are, because like you said, while it's easy to get started in it, it's not easy to get sales, you know, especially when you first start out. But and so if it's not something that you enjoy, it's a lot easier to quit when you're not seeing the fruits of your labor. And so, you know, it really comes down to, if it's something that you're interested in, which, you know, hopefully it is, you know, hopefully you're not just doing it just to get rich, because it's not a get rich quick.
Not that.
I promise you that. And having, you know, the opportunity to be, you know, to do no content books, low content books, children's books, full novels, traditionally published and self-published. I've done all that. None of it's easy. No. You know, none of it's get rich quick. So I can assure you that, at least from my experience, yes, there are the unicorns that just knock it out of the park right out of the gate. But majority of the time, it's going to be a struggle to get significant sales. I don't want to sound, you know, like it's, you know, the end of the world, and, you know, and deter people from it. I just want to kind of set realistic expectations.
I think that's really important. You said something there that's so true. I mean, you said, do you want to do it? You know, there is so much truth in that, because I can normally tell who's going to be successful and who isn't, just by the kind of questions they ask or the kind of books they create. And I always find that if people are doing it because they've listened to a video that tells them how much money they can make with it, and it's really easy to do, and and they go into it with that mindset, they tend to be the ones that fail. Not always, but most generally speaking, they're the ones that fail because they went into it from the wrong perspective. They went into it from a money-making point of view. They don't know enough books sometimes. They don't know enough about books. They don't know how a book is structured or what it even takes to publish a book,
Right.
And there tends to be like a little bit of a misunderstanding between what is required from them as a book creator, and because they don't tend to understand their audience. They don't tend to understand who buys these things. All they've heard is that somebody makes these lined notebooks and they're making thousands of dollars a month with this. I'm going to do the same thing, but they're not understanding the intricacies and the complications that come with creating a book. It's not just about putting some lined papers in a cover and publishing it on Amazon. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think you need to have a love of books. Definitely. You need to understand why people buy books. And it really helps if you're the kind of person that buys books.
Right.
If a person that doesn't really like reading or doesn't really buy journals or doesn't really use planners, you're not maybe the kind of person that will understand this business really well. I mean, you can learn it. You can learn to understand it. I've learned so much since I started this that I didn't know. But you have to have at least that inquisitive mind as well.
Right.
You have to want to learn about it. And there's a lot of people I find that that are kind of waiting for it to be coming to you on a plate, and then and they're not really looking into things where they can it's a bit like they're making a notebook and they haven't really looked at, well, who am I targeting with this notebook? What's my audience? How can I make this notebook different to other notebooks so that it's not the same as? They're not asking those kind of questions. And that is fine at the beginning. When you're first starting, you're probably not. You're just learning the process. But if you've been doing it for a few months and you're not having those kind of questions in your head, then there's something missing. And then I find that those are the people that give up because they're not looking at how they can make their books better than others, than other books that are already out there. Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it does. It doesn't. And I think it really brings home the original question, which is, is it too late? And I think it really comes down to something that you said kind of affects the whether it's saturated or not.
Yeah.
And that is, are you just putting out a generic, product, not doing anything to at least learn how to make it unique?
Exactly.
Then it's going to be way more saturated than if you're adding something unique to it. Whether it's a unique cover, unique interior, unique spin on something. There are very few ideas that are 100% unique. There's just too many people on the planet. I mean, is it possible? Absolutely. And unique combinations of things you can do. But in general, I mean, there's only so much you can do. But again, it's in asking those questions and again, like you were saying, knowing your audience, that you can really dial in your products and become and better your chances of getting those sales. So, and like you said early on, you may just put out a line journal, but you'll learn that it's a lot harder for, quote, just a line journal with a plain cover to sell compared to something that's more custom, and custom doesn't necessarily mean it's got to take you, a long time to create.
No.
But there's a better chance of that selling, again, assuming that it's custom and it's speaking to the right audience. I mean, if you make it custom, but it's not something that audience would be interested in, then it's a waste of time. Like
exactly.
if your audience, your covers, for dog lovers, and the interior you made really intricate with a bunch of cats on it, well, you might not sell as many because you're targeting the wrong audience. But something you said before about the videos, and obviously because we do YouTube videos, those are a lot of the comparisons I make. I've seen videos like what you talked about, where it's easy to do and you can make this amount of money. And I truly believe that to do the best for the viewer, that should be two separate videos, because that's two completely separate ends of the business. The creation aspect is easy and can be very quick to do, especially if you do have some software or templates or whatever that you can use that have that interior already made for you. And that's another good thing I love about low content, no content books is you can create the interior one time and reuse it, as templates. But that should be a completely different video than how much you can make.
Absolutely.
I think those are extremely important videos on both aspects. But because that's when you get the misconception that it's easy to make a lot of money.
It's kind of an interesting topic, because there's a lot of videos about side hustles, for example, do this, that, and I see them more as an entertainment video, because it's just ideas floating about. They'll give you 10 side hustles that you can do tomorrow. And I don't mind those videos, because sometimes you do get an idea and yes, they make it sound really easy, but I think we all know that life isn't that easy. And I think sometimes people really have to use their common sense when they're watching videos like that. At the end of the day, YouTube can be very informative, but it's also a way of entertaining people. And I think that's what people have to bear in mind when they're watching a video. It's like watching any other TV program. You're watching somebody's creation, which isn't fact. It's not a documentary. It's not something, it's that person's idea or that person's view of their world. So I don't mind those kind of videos if they're done, if they're not too over the top.
Right.
But I also think that we all have a responsibility to research a little bit more. Don't just watch one of those videos and then think it's going to be easy. You need to research more. And this is what I was saying about the people that succeed are the ones that do that. The people that succeed are the ones that want to keep learning. They want to find out how to do something. They'll watch 10 more videos on the same subject. Whereas the ones that maybe just watch one video and then they'll go straight into doing something, they're going to come across more obstacles and more difficulties because they haven't done their groundwork.
Yeah, they're not prepared enough.
Yeah. So I think, when we say, is it too late? It's not too late, but we understand where they're coming from and why they think that. But if you really research this business or any other business, it's never too late to do anything, because you can always find your angle on things or your way of doing something. It's like with everything. And the other thing is, when we start making low content books, of course we start, or hopefully we start with a lined notebook, because that's the easiest thing to do. And we're doing that just to start the learning process. And I always tell people, start with a lined notebook, because you want to familiarize yourself with the upload process and with how you're going to even create the cover and those kind of things. I think I actually made a planner before I made a lined notebook, but that's just me. But you should make a lined notebook first, something that's easy. But then what people tend to do is they, of course, make something that they've already seen on Amazon and they copy that, which is, as long as you don't copy it exactly, it's fine when you're first starting, because you're only practicing. But if you 3 months down the line and you're still making the kind of things that are already on Amazon, you're not going to get anywhere with your low content business, because you do have to make something that's unique to you and that's different from what's already out there. And that's the mistake I see very often. And then they're the kind of people that turn around and say, well, I've been doing this for 4 months, 5 months, I haven't sold anything, this isn't working, it's too saturated. In that case, it is saturated because they've been making things that are already on Amazon,
Right.
which, they're adding to the saturation.
Right.
So I can see why people think it's too late, but, coming from our perspective where we think of different things to make, it's not too late. That's, it just depends on how you look at it, don't you think? Like what
I
perspective
do.
you have.
I do. It does come back to, how much due diligence are you going to put into,
Yeah.
like you said, learning about it, ahead of time, jumping into it and, it really, the last thing you said really, kind of brings it all home. And that's, it's not necessarily low content books that's saturated. It's the type of product you're creating. And I don't even mean that by line journals, because I've seen people who put out line journals like currently who just started, who are still getting sales.
Yeah.
So even within something as simple as line journals, you can still make money doing it.
You can. Yeah.
But again, it's if you're just doing a plain black cover with white text, and it's just gonna blend right in.
Yeah.
One of the comparisons I make in the new book I'm writing, is people are writing or people are buying and scrolling on their phones more than ever before. And so you have to ask yourself, is that cover, because that's what they're seeing to begin with, is that cover going to grab their attention in the seconds it takes them to scroll? And so, if you're just doing something basic like that, well, then compared to the niche of line journals with black covers and white text, yeah, that might be saturated. But just saying no content, low content books are saturated, and you can't make any money on it, that's a huge leap, because I absolutely think it's not too late to jump into it, today, tomorrow, the next day, and just try it out and see if it's something that you enjoy. Because again, like we both said, if you're not enjoying it, obviously if you're making money at it, you'll enjoy it more. I get that. But but if you don't enjoy the process, you don't enjoy the learning process of it, then you're probably not going to stick with it, or it's going to be harder for you to stick with it, to the point where you're making money that's going to kind of keep you involved in it. So just to save time, I think everybody honestly should at least try it. And again, you don't want to add to that saturation, so I would say try it. You don't even have to publish it yet, but go through the steps, learn and see if it's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and there are parts of the business that are more interesting than others. Like my daughter was telling me the other day that she hates the upload process, and I could see why, because that is kind of the hardest part if you have to repeat it a lot. And she's only made two books. Yeah, she's only made 2 books, but she thought that was the hardest part. And I get a lot of people saying that, and I understand why that is. But then if you love the creating and the designing, then that kind of outweighs the bits that are not so interesting. And that happens with any business. There will be things that you enjoy more than others. And it's the overall, when you finish your book, did you enjoy that? Was that fun? Do you want to make another one? And if you can say yes to that, then I think that is worth doing. Like you said, just give it a try. You've got nothing to lose. It's free. You only have to lose the time that you invest in it. So, and what business can do that? Not many businesses out there that can offer you something for nothing, that where you can start for nothing. So it's definitely one of the better businesses that I've been involved in, and it's the one that I'm sticking with now. So.
I was gonna say clearly because you're sticking with it. But no, I agree, and it's and we'll cover this in a whole nother episode. But the good thing is once you start seeing some success in it, if there are aspects that you don't enjoy doing, you can outsource that.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's like, and then that saves you the time to focus on the stuff that you do enjoy. But just in any business, I mean, if you have a physical business, one of the things that most people don't like doing is, I mean, if you've got employees, that means you have to hire employees, train employees, and in some aspects, fire employees. And those are three things that I'm not a fan of. I've done them all and didn't really enjoy any of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this business. Like I said about you, I mean, obviously I'm still in it. But to answer the question that I think we've answered numerous times, but just to kind of round it all out, no, I do not think it's too late to start publishing no content or low content books.
Yeah, definitely not. I think that is the answer to it. I think when people say it's too saturated, it's because they either haven't looked into it properly, or they haven't had the experience of other types of businesses that are way more saturated. And there's a different reason why they think it's saturated. It's not actually that it is saturated. So
right.
Yeah.
Typically, I found it typically comes down to one of two things. Either they've heard other people say that it's saturated.
True. Yes.
Or they've said it themselves. And in both cases, majority of the time, it goes back to what you said earlier in the episode, which is it's from people who have put a little bit of time into it, and they're not seeing the success that they wanted to see. And because of that, and I hate to use the word excuse, but the reason they're giving for their lack of success is it's saturated.
Yes.
Instead of saying, why wasn't I successful? Taking that step back and being, and again, we could do a whole nother episode on why we're not successful or something like that. But yeah,
it's okay
I think
to
that's,
fail.
yeah, it's okay to fail. So I think that's really the big thing that's causing people to say things like it's saturated or it's oversaturated, or other ways of wording the same thing.
Yeah.
So I would say, going back to what you said, is if you're hearing somebody else say that, I hope that obviously you've done your due diligence by listening to or watching this podcast to see the other side of that, to where we're saying there are areas that can be saturated, but it's more specific than that. It's more like that particular design, that particular book, whatever, that might have way too many competitors out there.
Yes.
But it's not by making a blanket statement. That's like saying, is creating a hamburger restaurant too saturated? People are opening new ones every day, and so it really comes down to doing your due diligence and looking into it. And I really hope that people are getting more, seeing the other side of it, and a lot more excitement towards it, knowing that it's not too late to start making money selling no content, low content books, because it's not. I mean, like I said, if I were to open up a new one tomorrow with no money or little money to start, I'm still confident enough to where I could still make money doing it.
Yeah.
This has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. It would mean the world to us. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Corby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.